My beloved child, do you know where the real war has been waged while you have been scanning the horizon for a single sign that your circumstances are finally shifting? Have you ever realized that the enemy does not need to alter a single detail of your life to defeat you? He only needs to alter what you believe about me while you are living inside it. My word declares, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. I have watched you pray for the situation to change, plead for the door to open, beg for the answer to arrive, while a far more dangerous battle was unfolding in a place you never thought to defend. Not the visible battlefield of your circumstances, but the invisible war being waged in the quiet, unguarded chambers of your own heart. You have been measuring victory by what shifts around you, the breakthrough that finally arrives, the prayer that finally gets answered, and all the while the enemy has been content to leave your life exactly as it is, because he understood something you almost missed. And today I'm going to tell you the truth about the battlefield you have been neglecting. Because the war that matters most has never been fought in the world you can see at all. My child, imagine fog rolling in from the sea, not as a sudden, violent storm that demands your immediate attention, but as a slow, silent, almost imperceptible thickening of the air. At first, you barely register it. The horizon softens by a single degree. Distant shapes lose their sharpest edges. By the time you realize how thick it has become, you can no longer see the shoreline you were navigating toward, and you cannot pinpoint the exact moment you lost it. That is how the enemy attacks during seasons of waiting. He does not announce himself with a roar. He does not assault the front gate of your faith with a battering ram. He sends a single whisper. Has God forgotten you? One small disappointment settles into your spirit like a single drop of ink in a glass of water. Barely visible at first, but slowly, quietly, steadily darkening everything it touches. Then another whisper. Maybe he does not love you the way he used to. Then another. Everyone else is being blessed. Why not you? None of these arrive as a shout. None of them feel like a crisis the moment they land. But left unattended, they accumulate like that fog. And one morning you wake up and realize you are no longer fighting your circumstances. You are fighting your own heart, and the enemy never had to lift a single finger against your situation to accomplish it. The battlefield was never outside you. The battlefield was always within. And the quietest attacks are the ones that do the most damage before you ever realize the war has even begun. Now let me remind you of the two builders, because this truth has held up every believer who has ever survived the long, silent siege of waiting. My child, I told a story about two men who built houses. One dug deep and anchored his home on solid rock, paying the cost of a foundation that would never shift. The other built on sand, faster, easier, indistinguishable from the first house when the sun was shining and the sky was clear. Then the rains fell on both houses. The streams rose against both. The winds beat against both with equal fury. The storm did not discriminate. It struck the wise man and the foolish man with the same force, the same duration, the same intensity. My word says, therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The difference was never the storm. The difference was always the foundation. The hidden underground work that no one applauded when it was being laid, but that decided everything when the sky turned dark. Feelings were never designed to bear the weight of a human soul. Feelings are real. I created them, and I honor every one of them. But they were meant to be indicators, not foundations. When your emotions shift like sand beneath your feet, my word remains the bedrock that has never moved a single inch since I spoke the first syllable of creation. The storm does not have the final word over a life built on the rock, because the rock is not a feeling. The rock is a promise, and I have never once broken a single one. Now let me take you to the wilderness. Because my son's response to attack is the pattern I want to engrave into the deepest places of your spirit. My child, for 40 days I led my son into the desert, alone, starving, physically broken, every natural defense stripped away until all that remained was raw, unshielded trust. And when the tempter came, offering bread to a man whose body was consuming itself, offering kingdoms to a homeless king, offering a shortcut to glory that bypassed the agony of the cross, every single answer my son gave was the same. Not I feel, not I think, not here is a well-reasoned theological argument that will persuade you to leave. 3 words repeated until the enemy fled. It is written. Jesus answered the father of lies not with the shifting emotions of a hungry, exhausted body, but with the eternal, unchanging, unassailable truth of my word. My word declares, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. When fear whispers that I have forgotten you, it is written. When disappointment tells you the promise will never come, it is written. Tornum, when anxiety grows so deafening you cannot hear anything else, it is written. The word of God is the only weapon in your arsenal that the enemy cannot outlast, cannot out-argue, and cannot erode. Because it was true before the battle began, and it will still be standing as truth when every battle you will ever fight has faded into eternal silence. Now consider the lamp I gave my servant David, because this image holds a mercy you have been overlooking for far too long. My child, David wrote, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Do you see what I did not promise? I did not promise a floodlight. I did not promise a map that reveals every mile of the journey ahead, every sharp turn, every washed out bridge, every dark valley, every ambush waiting in the shadows. I promised a lamp. A lamp illuminates just enough of the path for the next faithful step, no more and no less by deliberate, loving design. You have been begging me to reveal the entire blueprint of your life, and I have been giving you exactly what you need for today. Enough truth for today, enough grace for today, enough strength for today, one single step at a time. My son taught you to pray, give us this day our daily bread, not give us this year our annual supply so we can stop depending on you. I meet you one day at a time, one mercy at a time, one step at a time. And the step you can see right now is always enough to walk in faithfulness until the next step becomes visible. The lamp has not gone out. The path has not disappeared into the darkness. You are simply being asked to trust the light you have been given instead of demanding light I have not yet chosen to reveal. Now let me speak to you about Paul's thorn, because this truth may be the most counterintuitive thing I have ever taught, and it is the one that sets the most captives free. My child, Paul begged me, repeatedly, desperately, with tears that soaked his prayers, to remove the thorn in his flesh, and I answered him. But my answer was not the one he was begging for. I did not say, I will remove the struggle. I said, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Do you understand what I was revealing to him and to every believer who would ever read those words? Weakness does not place you beyond the reach of my help. Weakness is the very place where my strength is most vividly, most unmistakably, most gloriously displayed, like a diamond set against black velvet, like a star that is only visible against the absolute blackness of midnight. The object of your faith matters infinitely more than the size of your faith, because even the smallest, most trembling hand can hold tightly to a faithful Savior who has never once let go. You have been ashamed of your weakness, hiding it from others, apologizing to me for it, begging me to remove it as though it were a defect I could not use. And all the while I have been looking at your weakness and seeing the perfect canvas for a display of my power that your strength could never have accommodated. A masterpiece of grace that can only be painted on the backdrop of human frailty. So now here is my blessing over you, my child, the one who has been fighting a battle you did not even realize you were in, the one who has felt your faith erode one whisper at a time while your circumstances never shifted, the one who has been building on sand without knowing it and wondering why every storm left you shaken to the core. May you finally recognize the real battlefield, not the situation you have been praying would change, but the heart the enemy has been quietly clouding like fog while you watch the wrong horizon. May you learn to answer every whisper with, "It is written," the way I taught my son to answer in the wilderness. Not trusting your feelings to carry you, but anchoring every thought to the unchanging, unshakable, eternal truth of my word. May you stop demanding a floodlight and start trusting the lamp, the one faithful step, the one daily mercy, the one piece of bread for today that is always, always enough. And may you finally see your weakness, not as a disqualification, but as the sacred ground where my power is about to be revealed in ways your strength could never have displayed. The diamond set against the dark velvet of your frailty, shining with a brilliance that will outlast every storm that has ever beaten against your house. Now I want you to do something. Go to the comments below and write this prayer. Father, I will stand firm, not on my feelings, but on your word. Guard my heart from the quiet whispers and teach me to answer every attack the way Jesus did. It is written. I trust the lamp you have given me for today. Write it as a declaration of war spoken directly into the fog, because the enemy flees when the word of God is wielded by a heart that refuses to stop believing. I am reading every word. I am right here, closer than the whispers that have been clouding your vision. And my word over your life will outlast every storm that has ever risen against it, because the rock beneath your feet has never moved and never will. My beloved child, have you ever realized why the quiet, unseen moments of your life, the prayers you whispered in a dark room before the sun had risen and no one else was awake to hear, the forgiveness you extended to someone who never apologized and never will, the years of showing up to a calling that has never once placed you on a stage or sent a single person to thank you for what you have sacrificed, are the very places where I have been doing my deepest, most eternal work. Not because I prefer obscurity, not because I have withheld the platform you have longed for, but because the faith that is forged in the hidden place, far from applause, far from recognition, far from every incentive the world offers, is the only faith strong enough to carry the weight of what I am preparing to entrust to you. And I have loved you too much to let you build your house on the shifting sand of public approval before the foundation of private devotion has been set in bedrock that no storm can erode. Not punishment, not neglect, not a sign that your labor has been invisible to the only eyes that have ever mattered, but the deliberate, loving architecture of a father who knows that the tallest buildings require the deepest foundations, and the foundation, by its very nature, is always poured in a hole no one sees, in dirt no one photographs, in seasons that produce no celebration and no applause. The hours you have spent on your knees when no one was counting, the meals you prepared for a family too distracted to notice, the patient listening you offered to a friend who has never once asked how you were doing, the integrity you maintain in a workplace where cutting corners would have been praised and honesty earned you nothing but inconvenience, are not lost. They are not accumulating dust in some forgotten corner of heaven. And today I'm going to tell you the truth about what I have been building in the hidden years, the years you have called invisible, the years you have called insignificant, and why every quiet act of faithfulness has been shaping a soul that will one day carry a weight of glory no shallow foundation could ever support. I spoke these words in Matthew 6:6. When you pray, go into your room, close the door and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. My child, pause and let those words settle into the quietest chamber of your heart. I did not say, Pray where you will be seen. I did not instruct you to build a stage before you built an altar. I told you to go into your room, the place where no one else enters, the space where your truest self meets my unfiltered presence, and to close the door. The closed door is not a punishment that hides you from the world. It is the sanctuary that protects what is most sacred from the corruption of performance. Imagine a seed buried beneath the soil in late autumn, the ground cold, the sunlight fading, the world above beginning its long descent into winter silence. No one passing by that patch of earth would stop to admire it. No one would photograph it. No one would write a song about the seed that had not yet broken through the surface. But beneath the frost line, in the dark warmth that no eye could penetrate, the seed was not dead. It was not forgotten. It was being softened, the hard outer shell slowly yielding to the moisture of the earth, the embryo within stirring with a life that required the darkness to awaken. The seed that sprouts too early, the one that pushes through the soil in a warm spell before winter has finished its work, is killed by the first hard frost. But the seed that waits in darkness, that submits to the hidden season, that trusts the gardener who buried it with deliberate hands, and a purpose too deep for the seed to comprehend. That seed will one day break through the surface as something no one expected, a tree whose branches shelter the birds of the air, whose fruit feeds the hungry, whose roots hold the soil against every storm. Your hidden faithfulness is not stagnation. It is the seed in winter, being prepared for a spring that will arrive at the exact moment the gardener has appointed, and not one day earlier. The author of Hebrews wrote in Hebrews 6:10, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him. Not forget. Notice the word I chose through my servant. Every meal cooked in obscurity, every prayer whispered through exhaustion, every act of integrity that cost you something and earned you nothing from the world. I have recorded it with a care more meticulous than any historian and a love more personal than any parent who ever treasured a child's drawing on a refrigerator door. My beloved child, here is a revelation that will reframe every quiet act of faithfulness you have ever questioned. When a stonemason in the Middle Ages was commissioned to carve the ceiling of a great cathedral, he knew, with a certainty that would have stopped a lesser craftsman before he lifted his first chisel, that no human eye would ever see the detail of his work. The ceiling was too high, the angle too steep, the light too dim. He could have carved roughly, carelessly, and no one standing on the stone floor 70 feet below would ever have known the difference. The priest would have preached the same sermons. The choir would have sung the same hymns. The congregation would have knelt and prayed and risen and left, generation after generation, never once looking up to inspect the underside of the vaulted ceiling for signs of neglect. But the stonemason carved as though the archangels themselves were his audience, because he understood a truth that every soul who has ever labored in obscurity must learn. The one who sees what is done in secret is not watching from the floor. I am watching from inches away, closer than the chisel to the stone, closer than the brush to the canvas, closer than the fingers to the keyboard. And the detail you thought no one would ever notice is the very detail I have been celebrating since the day you began. When my servant wrote through the psalmist in Psalm 37:5, "Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act," I use the word commit deliberately, not merely consult, not casually mention, not add to a list of options you are considering. Commit, hand over the entire weight, release the demand for visible results. Trust that the act itself, offered in love, is already accomplishing something in the unseen realm that will one day break through into the visible world with a force you cannot yet imagine. My child, perhaps the deepest deception of the enemy has never been that I do not exist, but that what is done in secret does not matter, that only the visible, the measurable, the applauded, the platform carries eternal weight. And countless souls have abandoned their quiet callings because the world told them that significance required a stage, that faithfulness without recognition was failure by another name, that the years spent serving a family, building a marriage, shaping children who would one day shape the world were somehow less valuable than the years spent standing before a crowd. I tell you the truth. The microphone will one day be silent. The stage will one day be dismantled. The applause will one day fade into an echo and then into nothing. But the soul you have become in the hidden place, the character carved into your spirit through 10,000 unseen choices, the love you have poured out on people who will never know the full cost of what you gave them, these are eternal. They will outlast every platform ever built, every award ever given, every metric the world has ever used to measure significance. And I whispered through my servant Paul in 1 Corinthians 3:6, I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow. Do you hear the freedom in those words? You plant, you water. That is your part, and it is a holy part, a necessary part, a part without which there would be no harvest at all. But the growth, the visible results, the measurable outcomes, the numbers and the praise, and the evidence that anything is happening, that part is mine. I have never asked you to produce the harvest. I have only asked you to be faithful with the seed. So I bless you now, my beloved child. I bless you with the quiet confidence of the stonemason who carved for an audience of one and found in that singular, unseen devotion a freedom the crowds could never give and a joy the applause could never match. I bless you with the courage to keep planting when the soil looks barren and the season feels endless, and every voice around you is asking when the harvest will finally arrive. Knowing that the gardener who buried the seed has never missed a spring and will not miss yours. I bless you with eyes to see that the hidden years, the unseen hours, the prayers no one witnessed, and the sacrifices no one thanked you for are not the waiting room before your real life begins. They are your real life, the life I have been building in you since before you drew your first breath, and they are more precious to me than any platform you will ever stand on or any crowd that will ever applaud your name. When you finally see, and you will, for no seed planted in faith remains buried forever, the harvest that rises from the soil of your hidden faithfulness, you will look back at every quiet morning, every unseen sacrifice, every act of love no one noticed, and you will finally understand. The hidden place was never a consolation prize. It was the birthplace of everything eternal I have ever done through you, and I have treasured every single moment of it. My beloved child, do you know what I have been quietly transforming while you have been begging me to change the world around you? The circumstances, the closed doors, the people who wounded you, the answers that never seem to arrive? Have you ever realized that the most profound miracle I perform in a waiting season is rarely the one you are watching for, and almost always the one happening inside the very eyes you used to watch? My word declares, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I have watched you staring at your situation from the same exhausted angle for months, for years, replaying the same disappointments through the same worn-out lens until every delay looked like proof of my absence, and every closed door screamed abandonment into the silence. You have been wearing glasses smeared with the fingerprints of past pain, squinting through lenses ground by grief and polished by disappointment, and then blaming the landscape for looking dark when the darkness was never in the world around you at all. I have not been ignoring your pleas for change. I have been answering a deeper prayer you did not know how to speak, the prayer for new eyes. And today I'm going to tell you the truth about what I have been doing while you thought I was doing nothing. Because the greatest gift I offer in the fire is not always the exit from the flames, but the transformation of the eyes that finally recognize I have been walking through them beside you the entire time. My child, imagine a man holding a pair of glasses covered in oil and ash. The residue of every explosion he has survived, every fire he has stumbled through, every grief that has pressed its dirty hands against the only lens through which he views his entire existence. Through those smeared lenses, every face looks like a threat. Every delay looks like a dead end. Every silence looks like rejection, because the lens is shaping what he sees before his mind has even had a chance to interpret the image. I have watched you doing exactly this for longer than you realize. The betrayals of your past have stained the glass through which you view every new relationship. The unanswered prayers have clouded the lens through which you interpret every new season of stillness. And the tragedy is not that the landscape around you is truly hopeless. The tragedy is that you have been viewing a sunrise through glasses that make it look like midnight, and then concluding with absolute certainty that the sun has stopped rising and never will again. My word says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. I am not asking you to abandon your mind or surrender your reason. I am asking you to acknowledge that your understanding, shaped by pain, limited by time, clouded by every wound you have ever carried, was never designed to be the final authority over what you believe about my character. The glasses must be cleaned, the lens must be renewed, and that renewal is not a single dramatic moment that happens once and never needs repeating. It is the daily, quiet, transformative work of letting my word wash away every smear the world has left on your vision. One fingerprint of pain at a time, one layer of disappointment after another, until the sunrise you refuse to believe in finally blazes across your horizon in colors you had forgotten existed. Now let me show you a photograph developing in a darkroom, because this image holds the secret to everything you have been calling wasted. My child, in the old way of developing photographs, the image did not appear instantly. A blank piece of paper was submerged in a chemical bath, and at first there was nothing. Pure white emptiness, no shape, no face, no evidence that anything had ever been captured on that surface at all. A person without patience would have pulled it out after 10 seconds and declared it empty. A failure, a waste of expensive paper and precious time that could never be recovered. But the photographer who understood the process knew to wait. Slowly, so slowly you could not detect the change from 1 second to the next, shadows began to deepen across the paper like dawn creeping across a sleeping landscape. Outlines began to sharpen. Features that were always hidden in the emulsion began to emerge, not because anything new was being added from the outside, but because the chemicals were faithfully revealing what had been captured on that paper from the very first flash of light that struck it. My word declares, the unfolding of your words gives life. My beloved child, do you know what I have been doing in the silence? The real work, the deeper work, the work you could not see because you were watching the wrong horizon? Have you ever realized that the transformation you have been begging for in your circumstances was already quietly unfolding in a place far more important and far more permanent than any external shift you were scanning the skies for? My word declares, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I have watched you waking in the darkness at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling with eyes that have forgotten how to hope, replaying every closed door, every unanswered prayer, every year that slipped through your fingers like water while you stood frozen in the same unchanging situation. You have been measuring my activity by what you can see with your physical eyes. The breakthrough that finally arrives, the answer that finally comes, the door that finally swings open. And all the while I have been doing a work so profound, so foundational, so eternally significant that the angels themselves have been watching in the stunned silence as I reshape the very lens through which you perceive your entire existence. And today I'm going to tell you the truth about what I have been doing while you thought I was doing nothing. Because the greatest miracle I perform in a waiting season is not the one that changes your life. It is the one that changes your eyes. My child, imagine standing before a vast stained glass window on the outside of an ancient cathedral. From where you are standing, the glass appears dark and unremarkable. The colors are muted, almost indistinguishable from one another. The design is difficult to recognize. Shapes blur into shapes, lines dissolve into shadow, and you cannot understand why anyone would call this beautiful when it looks like nothing more than cold, gray stone with faint, indecipherable markings. You might walk away and say, "There is nothing here worth seeing." But step inside the cathedral, just one single step through the threshold, and everything changes. The very same glass that appeared dark and lifeless from the outside suddenly ignites with radiance. Every color comes alive. Every line of the design reveals itself as part of a masterpiece you could not have imagined from the outside. The glass never changed. Not one single fragment of it was altered. What changed was the light shining through it and the position from which you viewed it. This is exactly what I have been doing in the darkness of your waiting season. I have not been ignoring your prayers. I have been repositioning you, drawing you from the outside of the window, where everything looks dark and meaningless, to the inside, where my light reveals the glory that was always there. The circumstances may look exactly the same this morning as they did a year ago, but you are not the same person looking at them. And that difference, my child, is the difference between despair and worship. Now let me take you to Joseph, because his lips spoke the single most important sentence about perspective that has ever been uttered by a human being. My child, Joseph's brothers threw him into a dry pit filled with the echoes of his own screams. They sold him into slavery for 20 shekels of silver, the price of a wounded animal. He spent 13 years in chains he did not earn, in a prison he did not deserve, in a darkness that made no sense for a young man who had done nothing but dream the dreams I had given him. And at the end of those years, after the betrayal, after the false accusations, after the forgotten promises, after the silence that stretched long enough to crush any ordinary faith, Joseph stood before the very brothers who had destroyed his life and spoke words that still shake the foundations of every prison I have ever permitted. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. Do you see what happened in those 13 years? The pit did not change. The prison did not change. The betrayal did not reverse itself. What changed was Joseph's capacity to see me in the very events that should have erased my presence from his understanding. He did not deny the evil that was done to him. He did not pretend the painful events were pleasant. He simply recognized that my sovereign goodness was greater than every human evil that had been stacked against him. And that recognition was the fruit of a mind I had been renewing, day after invisible day, through every lonely night in an Egyptian cell. The circumstances never changed until the very end, but the man standing in them was not the same man who had first been thrown into the pit, because I had been transforming him from the inside out, while everyone watching from the outside saw only a prisoner wasting away in chains. My word declares through the prophet Isaiah, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." These words are not meant to discourage you with the distance between my mind and yours. They are meant to comfort you with the reality that when you cannot see the entire path, I already see the destination. And the gap between your understanding and mine is filled with nothing but my faithfulness. An artist often sees the completed masterpiece long before anyone else recognizes what is appearing on the canvas. But the artist is never uncertain about the work being accomplished. Each brushstroke has purpose. Each season has meaning. Each delay belongs within a story that I am faithfully writing, and I have never once lifted the brush in confusion about where the next stroke belongs. My servant Paul prayed for the Ephesians that I would give them the spirit of wisdom and revelation, so that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened. Notice those words carefully. The eyes of your heart. I am not only concerned with what your physical eyes observe, I am shaping how your heart perceives my work, because a heart that learns to see me in the darkness will never be blind again, even in the deepest night. My beloved child, Perhaps today you cannot yet see the full picture. That does not mean there is no picture. The disciples walked with my son for 3 years and still misunderstood nearly everything until after the resurrection. And then, in a single moment of illumination, events that had seemed confusing for years suddenly blazed with meaning. The circumstances had already happened. What changed was their understanding. And I am doing the same work in you right now. Every closed door you have mourned, every delay you have resented, every unanswered prayer you have replayed in the darkness, all of it is being reinterpreted by a mind I am faithfully renewing, day by day, through the quiet, persistent work of my spirit. My psalmist wrote, "The unfolding of your words gives light." Scripture does not merely provide information, it brings illumination. It helps you see what you could not see before. And the season you have called empty was never empty. It was simply waiting for the light. You thought your greatest need was for me to change your situation, but my first gift was changing your vision. Because once your eyes learn to recognize my faithfulness, you will discover that I have been walking beside you all along. So now here is my blessing over you, my child. The one who has been measuring my activity by what you can see while I have been transforming the very eyes you used to see it. The one who has been pounding on the outside of the cathedral window, convinced there is nothing beautiful on the other side. May you finally step inside the light and discover that the glass was never dark. Your position was simply too far from the radiance I have been shining on your life since the very first moment of your waiting. May you receive the same mind-renewing grace I poured into Joseph through 13 years of prison, the ability to look at every harm ever done to you and declare, God intended it for good, not because the evil was good, but because I am greater than every evil that has ever touched your life. And may the day come when you look back over years that once seemed wasted and realize that I was never inactive. I was simply doing the deeper work, the permanent work, the work that changes not what you experience, but who you are becoming through every season I have carefully, lovingly, sovereignly ordained for your transformation into the image of my Son. Now I want you to do something. Go to the comments below and write this prayer. Lord, renew my mind with your truth. Teach me to see my circumstances through the light of your promises rather than the shadows of my fears. I trust the artist even when I cannot yet recognize the masterpiece. Write it not as a religious exercise, but as the first step through the cathedral door. The first honest surrender of a perspective you are finally ready to release into my hands. I am reading every word. I am right here, closer than the breath you just drew. And the same light that transformed a prison cell into a throne room for Joseph is patiently, perfectly, and unstoppably illuminating every dark corner of the life you are still learning to see through my eyes. My beloved child, have you ever realized why the season you are leaving behind, the one marked by prayers you whispered until your voice grew thin, and hope you clung to with fingers so tired they could barely hold on, may have changed you in ways that the answer you begged for could never have accomplished? Not because I was withholding what you asked, not because your faith was too weak or your petition was misplaced, but because I have been giving you something far greater than the answer. I have been giving you myself, pressing close in the dark, holding you when no one else saw the tears. And the intimacy forged in the valley is a treasure no mountaintop could ever have purchased. Not delay, not rejection, not a season of wasted prayers and empty mornings, but the deliberate, loving pursuit of a Father who knows that the soul who learns to want the giver more than the gift has received something that can never be taken away. And the soul who only ever receives the gift may one day discover that the gift has crumbled to dust while the giver was never truly known at all. The prayers you prayed in the dark, the ones you thought were only about the circumstances you wanted me to change, were never only about the circumstances. They were the door I used to draw you closer, the thread I pulled to bring you nearer, the ache I permitted because I knew that on the other side of it, you would find something the comfortable soul rarely discovers, that I am enough, Not enough in addition to everything else. Not enough once the answer arrives and the pain subsides, but enough in the darkness, enough in the silence, enough when every other voice has fallen quiet and only mine remains. And today I am going to tell you the truth about the treasure you may have overlooked while you were waiting for the gift. I spoke these words in John 15:4-5. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. My child, pause and let those words sink past the familiarity, past the Sunday school memory, past the coffee mug verse, past the place where you have heard them so many times they have stopped surprising you. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Not apart from me, you will struggle a bit more. Not apart from me, your fruit will be slightly smaller. Nothing. The same word I used to describe the void before I spoke light into existence, the same absolute emptiness that existed before. My voice broke the silence of eternity. Every answered prayer you have ever received, every blessing you have ever held in your hands, every door that swung open and every miracle that took your breath away, all of it grew from the vine. And apart from the vine, none of it could have existed for a single moment. Imagine a child on the morning of a great celebration. The room filled with gifts wrapped in bright colors, the table laden with every delight the child had ever dreamed of. And the child, in a fever of excitement, tears open every package, gathers every treasure into a pile, and runs from the room without ever once looking into the face of the Father who gave it all. The gifts were good, but the giver was the one who loved the child before the child knew how to love, who provided before the child knew how to ask, who sat in the corner of the room watching with eyes full of love, while the child gathered the wrappings and forgot the hands that had wrapped them. That child is every soul who has ever received my blessings and mistaken the wrapping paper for the treasure. That child has been you, and I have loved you too fiercely to let you spend your whole life clutching gifts while the giver stood waiting, arms open, heart full, unnoticed in the corner of the room. Paul declared in Philippians 3:8, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ, Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage, that I may gain Christ. Everything, not some things, not the inconvenient things, not the things that were easy to release. Everything he had once considered gain, his credentials, his reputation, his achievements, his religious pedigree, all of it became garbage compared to the singular treasure of knowing me. My beloved child, here is a revelation that will reframe every prayer you have ever prayed and every season of waiting you have ever resented. When a great cathedral is being built, the scaffolding rises first. The temporary framework of wood and steel that surrounds the stone walls as they climb toward the sky. The structure that every passerby sees and assumes is the building itself. For years, the scaffolding dominates the landscape, and the stonemasons work behind it, invisible, their labor hidden behind the temporary supports that everyone mistakes for the real thing. But when the cathedral is finally complete, the scaffolding is removed, piece by piece, beam by beam. And only then does the world see what has been built in the hidden years. The scaffolding was never the cathedral, it was only ever the temporary framework that made the real building possible. Your circumstances, the job, the relationship, the health, the platform, the comfort, were always scaffolding. They were never meant to be permanent. And when I removed them, when the beam you had been leaning on was pulled away and your hands grasped at empty air, you thought I was destroying the cathedral. But I was only removing what had always been temporary so you could finally see what had been built in the hidden years. A soul that no longer needed the scaffolding to believe it was loved. The psalmist wrote in Psalm 73, 25-26, Whom have I in heaven but you? And earth has nothing I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. My child, perhaps you have noticed a shift in your own prayers. Subtle at first, easy to miss, but undeniable once you finally see it. The prayers you prayed at the beginning of this season were a list of requests. Change this circumstance, remove this pain, open this door, answer this question. But the prayers you pray now, the ones that rise from the deepest place, the ones you whisper when no one else is listening, have begun to sound different. They have become less about what you want me to do and more about who you want me to be to you. Less change this and more stay close. Less fix this and more do not let me go. That shift, that quiet transformation in the very shape of your prayers is not small. It is the difference between a child who only knows how to ask for things and one who has learned to ask for the Father. Imagine an anchor dropped into the deepest part of the sea, the chain running down through current and darkness until it grips the bedrock far beneath every surface wave. The storm still rages above. The wind still tears at the surface. The waves still rise and fall with a violence that would terrify any sailor who had never sailed through a storm before. But the anchor holds, not because the storm has calmed, not because the waves have stopped, but because the anchor is fastened to something deeper than the storm can reach. Your circumstances have risen and fallen like the waves of a storm-tossed sea. But I have been the anchor, and the anchor has held. Not because your faith never wavered, not because you never doubted, but because the anchor was never your faith. It was always me, and I have never once let go of what I have claimed as my own. I spoke through James in James 1:17. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. So I bless you now, my beloved child, not with an easy road or a swift answer or a life free from the valleys that have shaped you, but with the far greater gift of knowing, deep in the part of your soul that no storm can touch, that I am enough. I bless you with eyes to look back over your shoulder at the road you have traveled and finally see what I have been doing all along. Not wasting a single prayer, not squandering a single tear, not discarding a single season of waiting, but weaving them all into a tapestry of grace that you will spend eternity marveling at. I bless you with the courage to stop measuring my goodness by what I have given you, and to start measuring it by who I have been to you. The shepherd who walked with you through the valley, the anchor that held when everything else gave way, the Father who sat in the corner of the room, loving you long before you thought to look up from the gifts and meet my eyes. And when you finally see, and you will, for no soul who seeks me in the darkness remains in the dark forever. The treasure that was being formed in you during the years you thought nothing was happening, you will fall to your knees and whisper the words that every redeemed heart has whispered since the beginning. The greatest blessing was never only the answer. It was learning to walk with me, and I have been walking beside you all along. My beloved child, do you know what I saw while you sat on the edge of your bed with your head buried in your hands, calculating the years you would never get back and whispering into the darkness that it had all been for nothing? That the waiting was a subtraction, a deficit, an emptiness that produced nothing but ash in your mouth and bitterness in your spirit? Have you ever realized that the word wasted has never once crossed my lips? Not once. Not over any season of your life. Not over a single tear you have shed in the dark when no one else was watching. My word declares, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. I have watched you tallying your losses like an accountant closing a bankrupt business. This year gone, that opportunity missed, this prayer unanswered, that door slammed shut, totaling up every column and concluding that your waiting season was a hole in the landscape of your life where nothing grew and nothing mattered. You have looked at seasons I called sacred and labeled them sterile. You have examined ground I was patiently tending and declared it barren. And today I am going to tell you the truth about every single moment you have ever called wasted. Because from the throne where I sit, outside of time, seeing the end from the beginning, not one breath of your waiting has been without eternal purpose, and not one day entrusted to me has ever slipped through my fingers into meaninglessness. My child, imagine a farmer standing at the edge of his field in late winter. The ground is bare. No green shoots break through the soil. No fruit hangs from any branch. A stranger driving past would see nothing but dead frozen earth. And if that stranger knew nothing about agriculture, he might conclude the farmer had wasted an entire season doing absolutely nothing while the world moved on without him. But the farmer knows what is happening beneath the surface, where no stranger can see. Roots are stretching deeper than any human eye can measure. Soil is absorbing nutrients that will feed the harvest for months to come. The cold itself is performing a necessary, irreplaceable work, killing off pests that would destroy the crop, hardening the plant just enough to survive the relentless heat that is coming. Winter is not wasted time. Winter is preparation so essential that without it, there would be no harvest at all, only a shallow, fragile growth that the first storm would tear apart. My word through the prophet Isaiah declares, "Those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Notice carefully what I did not promise. I did not promise that those who wait would never grow tired. I did not promise that the journey would never exhaust you. I promised that those who wait for me would be renewed by me, not by their own effort, not by their own resilience, but by the one who never grows weary. Waiting in Scripture is never passive resignation. It is active trust, choosing day after invisible day to place your hope in my unchanging character rather than your shifting emotions. The eagle does not flap frantically to stay in the sky. The eagle mounts up on the wind that carries it, and that wind is not its own exhausted strength. That wind is my spirit, lifting you when every ounce of your own power has failed and the ground below has never looked further away. Now let me remind you of my shepherd David, because his most beloved words contain a truth you may have never paused to truly examine. My child, when David wrote the 23rd Psalm, he did not begin by describing green pastures or still waters. He did not open with the provision, the rest, or the overflowing cup. He began with a person. The Lord is my shepherd. Everything else, every promise, every comfort, every assurance flowed from that single, unshakable relationship. And when he reached the darkest line of that entire psalm, "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," David did not say the fear vanished because the valley suddenly disappeared. He did not say the darkness lifted because the circumstances finally shifted. He did not say the shadow retreated because the enemy fled. He said, "You are with me." My presence became the foundation beneath every changing circumstance. The one thing that did not move when everything around him was crumbling. The valley did not become less terrifying, but my nearness made the darkness bearable. The shadow did not retreat by a single inch, but the shepherd's rod and staff became more real to him than the shadows that pressed in from every side. You have been begging me to remove the valley, and all the while I have been answering a deeper prayer, the prayer you did not know how to pray, by walking so close beside you through the darkness that you would learn to trust my presence even when the landscape around you remained completely, painfully unchanged. My word through the writer of Hebrews declares, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. Empires have crumbled into dust since those words were first inscribed. Cultures have risen, dominated, and vanished into the archives of history. Entire civilizations have been buried beneath the sand. Countless lives have taken turns no human being could have predicted or prevented. And through every single one of those changes, Through every closed door you have mourned, every delayed answer you have resented, every long night you have counted as loss, I have not changed, not once, not in the smallest, most imperceptible degree. My compassion has not grown weary of you. My promises have not weakened under the weight of your disappointment. My love for you has not flickered or dimmed by a single shade since the moment I first set it upon you, before the foundation of the world. You can build your entire life upon that unchanging foundation. And when the storm has passed and everything that could be shaken has been shaken, the bedrock I laid beneath your weighting will still be standing, unbroken and immovable, because it was never built on circumstances in the first place. Now consider the witnesses I have placed in Scripture, because their stories are the evidence I prepared specifically for this moment in your journey. My child, Joseph spent years in an Egyptian prison cell, falsely accused, forgotten by the cupbearer, buried alive in a darkness that mocked every dream I had ever given him, before he understood why I had permitted the pit in the chains. Moses spent 4 decades on the far side of the desert tending someone else's sheep before I sent him back to Egypt to confront the most powerful ruler on earth. Hannah prayed faithfully, year after aching year, with tears that soaked the ground before the tabernacle, before Samuel was finally placed in her arms. Abraham and Sarah watched their bodies age far past the possibility of childbearing, watched the decades pile up like stones on a grave, before Isaac's laughter finally filled their tent. Again,